Friday night, I want a Chippy Tea. Chippy Tea, Chippy Tea, I want a Chippy Tea. Oh, you can give me posh, no, she don't agree with me. I don't want lobster thermidor with raspberry coulis. It's Friday night, I'm within me rights, I want a Chippy Tea.
The key, I think.
Yeah.
So have I got permission to crack open one of them absolutely beautiful beers that you provided?
Absolutely.
So the whole point of why I got those specific ones was basically I just googled readily available Yorkshire beer brands, and that was one of them. So, and then I just thought I'd go for a bit of a mix. But then obviously what you'd also have found in your box, and obviously that other people I've sent them out to have got the exact same thing, is some official. And I bought a laminator to do these, and you know when you're getting old. And you're just like, little bits of tech. Official Chippy Tea bingo card. Hey. And also, the reason why I was asking what your colour was you've also got a dabber to do it properly
that's
as well.
what the colour was. Yeah, yellow.
There you go.
What a bloody
Why were yours
smashing...
yellow?
Because that was the colour that was left.
Because,
you got blue.
You picked blue, and he was like, yellow.
Oh, damn, yellow water.
but you've got a variety, so it's replayable again and again.
Honestly, you've actually made my year.
Put far too much thought into this.
Yeah, well, you know. Of an evening, as you know, of an evening when you're sat in a hotel doing nothing, you're just like, what crazy ass shit can I get up to? And doing that was my evening sat on Photoshop.
So you went and bought a laminator.
Treated myself.
Oh my god. Well, I'll return the favour in kind. I'll get you a new flipping sweet hat out to you.
Very nice.
Not to plug or anything, but Luke can get one for free. Everybody else will have to pay me.
And normally a palm print badge is normally earned and never given, but I think on this I'm going to have to make an exception.
I mean, if Luke hadn't earned or received a palm print badge, there we go. I was going to say he must have got one by now, surely.
Just some new ones coming out. I think we'll have to get a new one. I think we'll have to line up a new one. I've got some new ones coming through.
So I'm gonna let you do the honours, Luke. We've got 3 options here that you've kindly provided. Heaven.
Is it? Yeah.
Heathen.
Heathen or heaven?
Yeah. Heathen.
Sputnik. Spunk Nick, apparently.
I know him from school.
Faith and Peach. What are you saying?
Go with a fruity one. Why not? Try the fruity one. See how that one.
You know me.
Bit fruity.
Oh, I just like fruity drinks. That's smashing. So, are you comfy? Are you happy to jump straight in?
Yeah. Why not? Sure.
How about you, Tony? Are you comfy sat in Mackie D's car park?
Soggy crotch.
Ball soup. I've been practicing batwing all day.
I'm not even going to ask.
Batwing, when you open your leg and your ball's still stuck to your thigh. It looks like a bat swing.
Oh my god, this is guaranteed to be the best episode ever.
Yeah.
Right, hit us with that bloody lovely intro, will we, Tony?
Right, okay. Are you ready? Hold on tight, you.
I'm getting fucking leg ache.
Hold on tight, you suicide riders. The louder you scream.
Oh my god. Hang on.
Let me just dab it.
It's not. I'm gonna have to play along with this now. You're right. Go on, crack on.
The louder you scream, the faster we go. So, welcome to the Chippy Tea podcast. What is the Chippy Tea podcast? I hear you say. It's your chance, your opportunity to catch up with a regular podcast, a video call that happens between me, Tony P at Palm Print, and
Danny D, Flipping Sweet Print Go, and we've got a special guest today. A very special guest.
Luke Mitford, Chief Button Presser, T-shirt toucher, digital specialist, MHMGB, direct UK.com, gov.
Limited. Go, PLC. Charity. Maybe not charity. We'll get rid of that last tagline. How are you doing, Luke?
Not too bad, thank you. Obviously, just enjoying the weather that we're getting.
Isn't it a bit
when
warm?
When it decides what it wants to do, whether it's thunder and lightning, peeing down a rain, glorious sunshine, 32 plus degrees heat. Yeah.
It's standard British weather, isn't it? So
No.
I thought,
I'm having good weather. 26 degrees. I'm all right up in Manchester. It's not too bad.
well, we've had rain, sunshine, cloud, probably snow by the end of the day. So
Welcome to Yorkshire.
welcome to Yorkshire. So I want to call this episode DTG is shit. Prove me wrong, but I'm contractually obliged to argue against that fact. But I must admit, actually, to be totally honest, we did a bit of work together. You supplied some DTG for me not so long back.
I did.
And if there was any doubts, you squashed them. I was so impressed with the quality, and it dug me out of an hole. The particular job was a real pain in the ass to screen print. I think any printer, even with a press with more colours, would have been like, let's just pass this on. And DTG was a perfect solution.
Horses for courses. Depends on the artwork, depends on the product, depends on the numbers of product, like the variety of products you want to go on to. Everything has its place. We've just talked about with the weather, everything has its factors as well. It can go well, it can go wrong. It can be a difference of temperature, humidity. You've added a bit too much of this, took away a bit too much of that. So the design was the biggest thing that you gave me. And obviously going back a episode or two when you obviously did your show and tell, you could obviously see the kind of artwork that you were trying to achieve, the subtle fades. And it's not that obviously screen print couldn't do it. No. It's just a bit of a ball ache with the constraints that you had at the time.
This is it. It was an headache. It had headache written all over it. The separation, the number of colours, and just getting the colours to work together to achieve that psychedelic trippy effect. It was just made for DTG, if we're honest. And you properly knocked it out at park.
But again, like the messages that I sent you, there were questions I had to ask when it come to knocking stuff out, boosting stuff, altering stuff slightly to achieve that final result. As much as people obviously think a lot of DTG is just drag and drop, it is, as long as the artwork's been done all right.
Yeah. Well, maybe this is where this might be a bit of a myth bust. DTG isn't just a drag and drop, print and go. It's not a straight out of the box job. You do have to put a bit of work into the separations, in the settings, and that's something that I absolutely do not understand in the slightest.
All the P's.
All the P's. Right, here we go.
Tony's P's. It's all about the preparation. Yeah.
Piss poor. No. Proper
preparation prevents piss poor
performance. Yeah. Proper preparation prevents piss poor performance. Yeah, it's the same in anything, whether it's DTG, whether it's screen print, whether it's cutting little wooden animals to paint later, whatever it is. It's all a matter of get your preparation right first. And
90% of that, you'll agree, Tony, is in the artwork before you've even touched any form of equipment or put it onto anything. So
100%. People say to me, "Oh, that's a fantastic print," and I go, "No, it's fantastic artwork that I've reproduced." We are reproduction artists. That's all we ever do is reproduce. Yeah. And if the artwork's shit, we can reproduce that shit all day long. If the artwork's good, then we can reproduce it all day long as well. So all we ever do is reproduce. We don't produce, we reproduce.
It is one of those ones of, depending on the artwork, you can, spin something out of nothing. I mean, the classic saying, you can't polish a turd, but you can roll it in glitter. You can get given a terrible piece of artwork and try
Is that on my bingo card?
That's a new one. But it's again, you can be given a terrible piece of artwork and try to do as much as you can, which I think obviously in screen print with certain designs, you've got away with it. If it's something where it is a simple shape and you can hit that and turn it into a crisp, sharp vector, you can replicate that easy as anything. Obviously, if you go along and get somebody going, I've just took this picture on my old Nokia, it's about this big and about 30 megapixels, you're like, what's that? And you want it A3 on the middle of a shirt. Don't think I'm going to be able to pull that off. And I think that's true of every method. I think there is a limit to what you can achieve through poor artwork.
Yeah, garbage in, garbage out, basically, yeah. Where did you go, Luke?
Because old Dribbles is scratching at the door, trying to get in.
You. Are you anti-Miley?
Oh, no, but that's a good one, because you've said that. I get to stamp off another one.
Oh, for God's sake. Where's Auntie Mary? Hang on, I'm looking for it. This is like real bingo as well, because when I
this
got
is what you
bingo,
got to look. They're not all, they're not all on the same one. That's what I mean.
no,
You're now finding out why Haley doesn't take him to bingo. He's like, what was that number?
He only has one card, and she's got about 50, and she.
And every time I have to go for a wee mid-game, she's multitasking anyway. So
yeah, she just takes your card on as well.
every time I go for a wee.
Yeah. Well, you ain't gone for one yet, so that you can't stamp that.
Oh, come on!
Just say it.
You've only just cracked it. You've only just cracked into that can. 2 more sips, and you'll be good to go.
I'll be right. So DTG, it's not just an inkjet printer that offers offer a T-shirt. It's a bit more to it than that.
It's like you've mentioned previously with other things and people. Like, again, it all comes down to the gear you've got. Again, you could have all the gear and no idea, or you could have the crappiest gear going and know everything and achieve good things. But the sliding scale of quality is going to be down to obviously the kit you're using and the person that's doing it. Do they do it because they just see it as a 9 to 5er and they just want to bosh it out? No, you can't. Don't just say it because you got it on your card.
Right, sorry,
But you can use amazing equipment, but still just have somebody that wants to just clock in, bash out a load of numbers, make a bit of moolah, and go. There's going to be no, tender loving care put into it. Again, like your business is pretty much you, Danny, and obviously you've got to put effort in, and you've got to support that business. So you're going to go that extra little bit. Whereas obviously a lot of the bigger companies, they can do amazing things, but also, as Tony will obviously verify, they also churn through staff left, right, and centre. Because again, obviously, if you just want to clock up and turn up a wage, you're not going to go along and do that extra bit, that little bit more. I think everything, like the whole argument with DTF, some can be amazing, others can be terrible. Again, it's not necessarily just the machine at play. It all depends on obviously the settings somebody's, tested to find out. If they haven't done any testing and they just go default settings, bosh out 100 meters, there you go. The results are going to vary the same.
Yeah, so for a little bit of background information, Luke, how long have you been doing this now?
So I have been with MHM Direct GB UK PLC.gov for, it will be coming on 9 years come the end of this year.
Oh, wow.
And then what were you doing before that?
Running a print shop. So I was like production man. And then previously before that I was just print man. And then before that I was just press man. So I've gone through flat coloured vinyl, sublimation transfer, DTG when it was pretty much in its infancy. So we're talking probably 15 to 18 years ago was probably when I first started.
What machines?
Brothers. Big up the
Brother GTs.
Yeah, Brother GTs. So obviously starting from the 541s, which were just CMYK only, simple, but you could only really do white T-shirts and natural coloured tote bags, all the way up to today where you've got big things, whether they're a standard DTG, a hybrid machine where it's mixed in, ones where they're added onto carousels, so it's obviously a screen print base with digital on top. I'd say in 25 years, digital's come a very long way, but obviously it's had a base knowledge in standard wide format printing, normal paper printing, screen printing to feed it. Yeah, you've got to have a basis. You can't just pluck an idea out of nowhere and hope that it works. It's all got to be fed from something to start with. And I think obviously in even just the last 5 years, digital technology's come on leaps and bounds again. DTF only came out, earmark 3 years ago?
3 years, yeah. 3 years.
So you look at obviously how well that's come on. It was a great product when it got released. It was still very thick and very heavy and plasticky. Not so much now. It's becoming a hell of a lot more of a viable product. Is it as good as DTG? It's completely different. Apples and oranges. One, you're pretty much spraying it directly onto the garment. The other one, you're pretty much making a garment sticker. Obviously then there's differences between DTG and screen. Screen, you're making your negatives for each level of colour, and your ink is basically margarine, whereas my ink is just food dyeing water. If you had to break it down to the bare bones, and then it just comes down to the application.
What would you say your job is now? So what? I know you say you're a technical digital specialist applicationist man, but what do you do in a summarise what you do now?
So I break it down into 4 areas. So I do all installs, I do training, I do all services and repairs. And then obviously I help with production overview as well. So when it comes to a lot of our clients, I would easily say 90% of them are print on demand. So it's a simple website with anything from 1 to 1 million designs on. It's all on a mock-up of a garment or product of some sort that you can DTG on. The print house normally houses the blanks, or if not, they'll literally have a good to supply chain to whoever their wholesaler is, so it can be ordered in next day. And literally, they do not print a product until it is physically bought and paid for on that website, and then it's all about quick turnaround. But it's one-offs. I mean, you can obviously do batches of runs, you can do big runs, but then obviously, and I think this is a conversation many years ago me and you had, Tony, where it's a case of there's like a crossover. So
What's
it's a case
that
of
number?
yeah. So obviously you've got all your singles, but obviously if you went, right, let's do 1,000 pieces of this one design on this one product, if you got given a carousel, Tony, and I had, let's say, 2 DTGs, because obviously I can max out on so many, if you had all the designs on a USB stick and I had all the USB designs on a stick, who could get to that 1,000 first? Now, I know I could probably get a good, 50, 100, maybe 150 by the time you've got your screens done, your inks mixed, the machine set up. 15 minutes later, I've only done 10 to 15 shirts more. You've finished. So it's kind of like
the discussion we had. You'll beat me to the first shirt, and maybe the first 20, or even if you want to go to the first 50. But then after that, once I get my first shirt off, I'm getting every 4 to 5
every so many seconds. Yeah. So that's it.
You're still about 60 seconds for a shirt print.
At a max, I think we're down. The range now, depending on artwork and size, is anything from 40 to 60 seconds.
Wow, I didn't expect it to be that fast.
So obviously the print that I did for you, because it was, I don't think it was quite A3, but it was definitely bigger than A4. I think that was like a flat minute, full white underbase, full colour, single pass, and that was it. So obviously mine's a set pace. So every minute there's one coming off. Tony's, like you said, it's going to take you the first minute to do the full rotation of the carousel, but then every 4 seconds after that, there's another one, there's another one, there's another one, there's another one. So, and obviously, again, it all comes down to costs as well. Mine, it doesn't matter how many I churn out in an hour, the flat use of consumables, utilities, labour, it doesn't matter whether I'm just printing that one or whether I'm printing the full hour's worth. It's the same set cost per shirt. Obviously, use screen printers, whether it's obviously even manual or auto, the figures slide. But obviously, the more pieces you do, the cheaper it is per shirt because you know that you have a maximum you can output in that hour.
The first shirt's always the most expensive, and then all we have to do then is divide the total number.
Divide it by however many you're going to bosh out. So this is why I say it comes down to horses for courses. What is the order? What is it for? How many pieces? What are you trying to? What's your deadline? I could go along and have I've got a little heat press here and my DTG's in my garage just there. I think I did 75 items for you. I think there were T-shirts and tote bags, Danny, and I think it took me 2 hours. So what's that, about 35, 40 pieces an hour?
Yeah.
But then obviously that's laughable to you because I'm sure you could load your first T-shirt, sneeze, and there's 50 already on the belt, good to go. So
have you seen Danny work?
Well, the sneeze, and then you've got 50 write-offs. But so.
To be fair, that was a really great example of 75 T-shirts that would have took me more than 2 hours. 2 hours of setup time. 2 hours of setup time. You know what I mean? Just the whole involvement of that process would have took me so much time away from printing.
And again, going into any other process, depending on what the product is, how many, the artwork, sublimation. If you're doing a little A4 printer, it can only churn out so many in a minute. If you're doing it by the roll on like a nice wide format, whether it's a Roland, an Epson, a Mamaki, it can only spit out so many linear meters in an hour. The same with DTF. But then it also comes down to obviously maximising use, time and consumables. Like if I only wanted to, say for example, this really nice top that I got from really good print shop. If I was going to do 4 of those and it would fill a linear meter, 2 side by side, 2 top to bottom, cool, I filled in linear meter, perfect. But if I only wanted to do 1 and I had nothing else to do in that print run, why would I waste that stretch of time, ink, and film, it's no different than obviously when you create your films for your screens. Like, obviously, if you're doing it by the roll, or back in the day, whether you might have done it by a sheet, you try and maximise, nest it, try and fit as much on and that's the same thing. Like, it's all about optimising it. If you're not bothered about, obviously, the costs that you're doing, and obviously it's all about the speed, but then obviously then you need to be charging the price to obviously balance out where you've lost in one, you've gained in another.
Yeah, I mean, there's print shops in screen printing. I think you have to sort of prioritise what type of print shop you want to be, whether it's production time, speed, whether it's quality, etc. And it sounds like you've got the same variables.
It's that. It's not that brand, but it's that. It's the cost, time versus quality. Which two of the three are you going to chase? Because it's going to be very hard to achieve all three.
Yeah. So my very limited knowledge of DTG. Gone are the days that we have pre-treat machines and you can only put certain garments in there, basically a white cotton T-shirt, you have to pre-treat it. How far along has it come? Is it versatile now?
There's just more. So unfortunately, and Tony's dealt with this back in the day, pre-treat is the bane of the process.
Yeah.
It is the white gold. It is the
watered down
PVA glue.
Pre-treat is the reason I don't like DTG. So I came out with a saying, and I've got quite a few sayings that might be on that card, so I'm going to try and change them a little bit. But number one, yeah, no, I have to be careful. Number one, if we could print the pre-treat, so if I could print the pre-treat and only put it underneath the white where it needs to be, then I would love DTG. Now, obviously, there are big corn-eat machines which spray the pre-treat in like a quarter. And they can zone off an area, and then it prints onto it wet, which that's halfway there. But every time I ask this question to all the scientists that know what they're talking about, they always said we can't get the pre-treat chemical to pass through a print head. That's the only reason they couldn't print the pre-treat, because for me, DTG, the pre-treat is the bit that holds it back. So you have two types of pre-treat. Jump in if I'm wrong. Dry pre-treat and wet pre-treat. So wet pre-treat is mainly by the Israelis, the corn-eat company, and they've come up with something which they patented and copyrighted and tied up really well so that they could spray the whole garment, and then while it was still wet, put their white and colours down on top of it and it would stick. And then you put it through a dryer for, I think at last count it was 12 minutes.
Anything from 8 to 12 minutes. Again, it depends on your dryer. Again, it comes down to kit.
So I think it's about 12 minutes. So it's a 12-minute cure. So it's a long cure. And then the other side was dry pre-treat. So we remove it. Instead of it all being as one, it becomes a pre-treat dry print.
Dry.
So we prepare the surface to be printed on, instead of with a wet solution, with a wet and then dry solution. So either dry it with a heat press or dry it through a dryer, whichever way you want to do it. But basically put a chemical down first for the ink to stick to.
Right. And this pre-treat chemical, is it like a layer of glue?
The easiest way to describe it is basically like watered down PVA glue. The way that it looks, the way that it feels, some has a smell, some doesn't. Again, it just depends on brand and type. But like Tony says, obviously certain ones are designed to purely react when it's wet, and it stays wet until the whole process is done, and then you bake it off at the end. And then others, it's a layering thing. So you prep the surface, you dry the surface, you smooth out the surface, try and make it as receptive as possible for the ink to go down, and then you rinse and repeat the process, but this time with the ink rather than the pre-treat. If I remember correctly, if we're going into like scientific terms, and I'm presuming it's the same way when it comes to like screen-based like inks and chemicals, it's a cross-linking binding agent.
Right.
It's a cross-link.
So it's in the middle. So it's going, come on, Mr. Cotton Shirt, you're staying there, and hello, Mr. Ink, you're coming, and I'm going to hold the two of you together. And again, depending on the chemical type and who manufactures it, washability has a big factor as well, because then obviously it only has so much grab or stickiness to bond that ink to the garment so well. Is it the same as screen printing? No. I know certain screen printed t-shirts where the t-shirt's fallen apart well before the print has. But again, is that because it's water-based? Is that because it's plastisol? Has it been discharged so it's actually more embedded in the shirt than it is obviously anything else? All these little keywords that I've picked up listening to this podcast that I listen to now and again. But there's varying factors at play. But then obviously it then also comes down to a production standpoint as well. Like Tony said, because you've got these big Corneat machines and everything's in one, it's great from a production point of view because you only need a single person. You have one machine, one person, load that T-shirt on there, press that button, take it off and let it dry. And that's obviously where the whole button pressers comes in. Obviously with the process that I represent, his brother, it's the spray the shirt, dry the shirt, print the shirt, dry the shirt, which seems a lot more long-winded. But then obviously both processes, as Tony said, it's about 12 minutes of dry time on something that's so heavily saturated. Whereas if you're just doing quick wet, quick dry, quick wet, quick dry, it all adds up. And it's, they're not really that far time-wise off.
Right.
But then your final results are different. So where you were saying with the prints you sent me, you like the whole subtle fade, you can't get that wet on wet. Because I don't know if you remember doing it at school as a kid, where you would draw in water on a piece of paper, and then you'd put a little drop of ink, and the ink would then run to wherever the water would be. Same principle. So you wouldn't get a nice subtle fade. It just kind of runs out to wherever the additional moisture is. Whereas obviously the dry on dry, because it's a dry product, it can only stick to where it is.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I mean, the print that I sent you, I had a sample back. It was only a photograph sample of the same print. It was from another DTG printer, which I was advised get in touch with these guys and make a DTG print. And outsource it as DTG, and it came back horrendous. Honestly, it came back horrendous, and there was a couple of subtle differences. I mean, one, I sent you the artwork, and you was like, right, there were questions, and you spent time tweaking and changing, and you said, do you want this on a do you want this to be solid black, or do you want it to have a purple fade, etc.? And you can see the squishy thing behind the process before you press print has made all the difference.
But then it comes down to the classic thing of, I'm not a print shop. I've got my printer because I want to learn about the industry I'm in and I want to get better at it. So it's not like I'm doing it as a business point of view. So I've got the time to invest in it. Whereas, as Tony said before, we don't sell T-shirts, we sell time. So obviously if you're doing it as hang on.
If that's got to be on a card somewhere.
Yeah, 100%. But obviously that's the whole thing. It's a case of if you're willing to put that, but then you then charge for that time. If you're willing to put that time in because you know you will yield a greater product deserves a higher price tag. It's simple as. It's the mathematics of it. So, but then obviously again, depending on the kind of business model and who you cater for, that might not necessarily be the kind of flow or market you're aiming at. It might all just be about the quick pace. If you go along and have somebody going, holy crap, I'm a small band, but we've got a gig tomorrow and I could really do with 50 T-shirts and I need them now, quality might not be obviously the top of that spectrum, but obviously you invest in that time in literally dropping everything to fulfill that order ASAP, it's still worth the price tag as if to whether it was a high quality garment and it took 5 weeks for them to get it. So
yeah, absolutely. So if I say the word to you, DTF, does it fill your boots with fear?
It's a love-hate. I love to hate it and I hate to love it because it is an amazing product. It has definitely got its place. It's certainly pushed DTG aside one side and printed vinyl the other and slotted itself in. But that's what I think it's done. It's slotted itself in. I don't think it's going to take over anything, but it's definitely not going anywhere anytime soon. It's too convenient. It's too easy. Don't get me wrong, obviously COVID, I know that happened, DTF came out 3 years ago. If it came out 5 years ago, kind of the peak of COVID, I would love to see how it would have reacted, because the amount of, horrible to be a stereotype, but the amount of soccer moms that went to Hobbycraft and bought a cricket cutter or a cricket heat press, you go along and have access to literally being able to buy a single linear metre of DTF or an absolute wad of, and all you've got to do is stand in your back bedroom, heat pressing them and boshing them out. Fantastic. And brands have come up with that. I know very good brands that literally, that is their sole business, and it is fantastic. Do I think it's improved over time? 100%. Did I like it when it first came out? Hell no. I may as well have just got a supermarket shopping plastic bag that's, just as expensive as what DTF is nowadays, and just ironed it onto the front of a shirt. Whereas now, obviously, it's progressed. It all comes down to the ink, like its viscosity, the film you're using, the powder that's on it, the glue powder that's used to adhere it. The fact that you can go onto a wider variety of products, you can go onto those polyester products if you wanted to go onto hard things like bags, rucksacks, gift bags, caps, beanies. Probably need a patch on a beanie, but you could still do it. Yeah. Do I like it? It all circles back round to the very thing at the beginning: artwork. If you've got a giant block, it's going to feel plasticky whether you like it or not. Yeah. Whereas if you go along and have a lovely distressed, broken up, it'll be lovely. Again, will it still hold up as much abuse for washability and robustness as screen? No, because it is still, at the end of the day, a garment sticker. But it is perfect for what it was designed for. Do I agree with Tony's statement of it makes all the promises that DTG did? Yeah.
So my statement is, it is the perfect complement to screen printing. It's the complement that DTG promised it would be and never delivered.
Yeah.
So it doesn't replace anything, but it complements a garment decorator. I go to lots and lots of places around the world, and I see DTG, I see DTF, and I see screen print, all existing within the same arena. But what I do see more and more often is the DTG machines being tarpaulined and mothballed and put to one side in place of the DTF. Now, for every 10 that I see like that, the last one I was in Pennsylvania, there was one that they hated the DTF. Everybody wanted the DTF except the sales guys. The sales guys said it feels like a garment sticker. It feels like a garment sticker. We don't like it. It's like a transfer. Now, they're the exception to the rule. Mostly, everywhere from Adidas to Nike to the college footballs, they love it. And it's fully approved by them.
Now, do you think that's because of the sector they're in? Because in theory, you've got to think, especially from obviously from across the pond, football jerseys or soccer, you put a sponsor logo on a shirt, guaranteed it's going to be a vinyl cut transfer or a screen print transfer. So do you think that's a biased opinion because in theory, they've always had it and they've always known it?
Yes. Will it replace fashion printing? No. So DTG can complement fashion printing. So as you going to the store, seeing something and going, you know what, that's nice, I'll buy that with my fingers. I won't look at it online, I'll actually touch it and feel it and think, I quite like that. The design's good, I touched it and it's okay. Now, if we had the same design, screen printed, DTG'd and DTF'd, exactly the same design on the same garment, the buyer would look at the DTF and go, no. They go to the DTG and think, maybe. And then they go to the screen print and think, okay, maybe it's a bit scratchy. But it would all be about feel. Now, whether we as decorators are too hung up on feel, I think maybe we are.
We look with our hands.
We look with our hands, yeah. You go anywhere. If you like us, you'll go shopping, and when you go shopping, you're in the printed T-shirt section because you have to be. And like you say, you go and look in stores. I'm doing some Disney stuff now, and you go into a Disney store, and it's like you don't just look at it. You have to touch it. You have to feel it. Even if you're walking through a print shop and you walk past a pile of shirts, you just go and you touch it. You look at it with your fingers. Yeah, you look at it with your fingers, like you fucking care. Like, it doesn't matter. The guy bought it on the internet. He doesn't care. It's just a picture of his dog having a shit on the toilet. That's what he wanted.
That's a testament to passion and actually giving a shit, though. I think some of the print shops that we talked about, DTG and screen print, where it's just about quantity. It's just about churning out as many shirts as we possibly can in a short amount of time. I don't want to label it, but almost promotional way. They don't give a shit, do they? And the end user probably don't really give a shit either. So
It's going to be worn once. It's going to be washed once, and 90% of it's going to go in the bin.
yeah. I've just done
Yeah,
1,000. Sorry, go on.
I printed for a place up in Newcastle, and they took the decision that the buyer buys a decorated garment. They don't buy screen printed, they don't buy DTF, they don't buy transferred, they don't buy DTG. They buy a decorated garment. When the parcel arrives next day and they open it, they want to see a decorated garment. Their education is not high enough to know which process you use. They trust you to pick the best process. And if, according to the design and the substrate, the best process was DTG, that's what they trust you to do. I think with the DTG, the product is limited. Now, you get me if I'm wrong here or not, Luke,
Yeah, no.
but I understand it's 100% cotton unless you make some changes.
Again, obviously, like application of pre-treat, again, it's going to vary. But like, I quite like going onto hoodies and jumpers that are like an 80-20.
Yeah.
So obviously, the main reason for the 20% polyester is obviously it does make it a bit tighter knit, and it does make it a bit smoother because obviously it's a man-made synthetic fibre that kind of like binds a bit more. But yeah, other than altering the volume or chemical ratio to your pre-treat, you could probably go down to maybe, a 60-40, but then obviously you're starting to play with fire then. And as you've said with certain screen print methods, like, you're going to hit those boundaries where it's a case of this method just won't work for this product anymore. We're going to have to look at something else. That's the reason why I do like DTF, because it is that complementing factor of if you had both, where you're losing out in one, it can be picked up by the other. And again, depending on the kind of order.
I've always said it complements screen print. Do you think it complements DTG as well?
I think it complements everything. I don't think there's a lot you can do where DTF wouldn't just be easy to just have as a sideline and just have there. My argument at the moment, and I'm seeing it more and more, is I think DTF has created its own problem. So this is, whereas the other side is, I respect it and I like it, and this is the hate part is, to use language, every fucker and their mom's got one. The problem is there are too many DTF printers out there. I see too many print shops that saw it when it first came out, and again, obviously readily available. Got bombarded and brought in from China quite easily. How much
Chinese machines?
Yeah. How much do you do a day? Oh, well, our brand's quite good. We do probably about 10 to 20 meters a day. It's like, well, the shittest one can do 100-meter roll in 4 hours. So if you worked a full 8-hour workday, that's 200 meters. So if you're doing 20 meters a day, what are you doing with the other 180 meters worth of lost production? Because that's what it is. If you've got the capability of doing 200 and you're only doing 20, to me, it seems a bit point. Oh, well, obviously, if we can't use it, there'll be other people that want it that can't buy a machine. How about we cater to them? And looking at records online that I've found, a linear meter was anything from 40 to 50 quid a linear meter 3 years ago, plus. Because obviously, again, there were other companies using a similar method. Now you can open up any other magazine or go on any old website, and there's people that are doing it for £6, £7, £8 a linear meter because everyone's got one and they've got so much excess print time. The only thing that they can compete with, because again, it's similar films, similar inks, all the machines are pretty much the same, obviously, other than certain tweaks that make some better than others, is the price. And then everyone just seems to do that classic whittling. And over a 3-year course, it's dropped from, let's say it was 40 quid a linear meter to, I'm sure if you open up most well-known industry magazines, you can pick it up for like 7 quid.
There's a lot of
that's it, and it's not, and that's not like it's a bad thing, because it shows that obviously there is demand and people have got the capacity to do it. But I just don't think there's enough demand for the capacity that's actually out there. And then it just means either printers sit there unused and unutilised, or it's boshed out for that cheap. It kind of makes it like, is it really worth it? Is it worth running that printer for 8 hours a day if you only really need it for that 1 hour? Would it be better if half the amount of people that had one that didn't really need one got rid of it and bought it from those that did and could? It comes down to a numbers and a maths game in my head, but that's the only reason why obviously I don't like it, because I just think it's created its own problem. It's an amazing product, but there's just too much ability for it, but not enough demand. and the demand that is there, the amount of people that I've spoken to that are just like, oh, like they couldn't do it, so I literally went up the road and got it from them. Oh, but theirs was a little bit crap, so I went further up the road and got it from them. And literally, it's almost like within a stone's throw, you'll hit somebody that's got a small, a medium, or a big DTF machine. That's my only downside to it, is I think so many people that have one that shouldn't. But other than that, the actual product, for what it can do and the products it can go on, I really like. It's just that the way that it's affected the industry is what I don't like.
So how are you seeing DTG sales since DTF came out? Have we got the same issue in DTG in that there's too much capacity available?
No, because, well, from what I've experienced, it's very much a case of DTG is either a service or it's a in-house process. So I would say 50-50, the people we cater for own their own brand. They print for themselves. Whether that's, like, I'd say 80% of the business, and then they might do family and friends or local businesses, but it'll be like word of mouth turnover only. But then obviously you've got the whole big print on demand houses, which are, we've got an API for our system. Any website that works on these platforms can plug in. You sell a product, your order comes to us, we pick it, print it, pack it, ship it, you get your cut. But then it's a case of, that's great if you've got one person, but then when you've got 50, then you've got 500. When you're catering for a country, then it's even better, because it's literally a case of you just sit there and watch the work roll in for you. But then again, when you're doing it for yourself and you're a brand, you're chasing that high quality as quick. Well, I don't know. Again, I suppose it depends on your ethics and morals as the brand of which of the 3 points do you chase. Whereas obviously when you're doing it for other people, the key feature is to make it as cost effective as possible, as quickly as possible. Is there going to be a vary in quality? Then that comes back to the whole thing at the beginning of staffing. If the staff care, you'll try and hold on to that as much as you can while chasing the other two. Whereas if they're just literally there punching in and punching out, that is going to be the weak link that's going to get ignored.
What's your favourite type of fruit, Luke?
I like bananas.
Do you?
I've been eating a lot of bananas with yoghurt.
I like kiwis.
I don't know why. It's good breakfast, that.
I like kiwis. So, do you know curing DTG?
Fluff on or fluff off?
Fluff off.
Hang on.
Fluff off. You can't eat with fluff on. It'd be like chewing a testicle.
Yeah. It is. I'm not.
Nah.
My missus does. That's it. Full thorough wash. Rub that whole thing. Gone.
No, that's just wrong. You obviously like chewing testicles.
Subscribe to that one.
I'm not having
that. How easy is curing for DTF? I keep seeing, and people keep trying to sell me as well, actually, digital curing units for look exactly like screen printed tunnel dryers, but they're classified as digital. Curious to know, what is the difference? How is the curing? Is it a scalable process? Can you have a DTF machine in your bedroom, like we've just been sort of talking about? Anybody can print DTF. Can anybody start with a DTF machine and cure it with very little equipment, all the way up to the print-on-demand mega shops, mega factories? I'm assuming they're using big-ass tunnel dryers.
From my experience, you could buy a simple A4 roll DTF printer, not very big, not very expensive. They come with their own drying unit. And again, that drying unit is basically almost like a mini conveyor belt with a flash cure lamp over the top.
I meant DTG. Sorry, I meant DTG.
Oh, right, okay. So it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, because the other point I was going to go down is there are a lot of DTGs. I'd probably say 3 or 4 different brands where you can both DTG and DTF on the same thing. And again, obviously, some of the printers go from desktop size up to being the size of a, Land Rover.
Right.
So again, it all depends on what your budget is. So, I've set up people in back bedrooms, conservatories, Wendy houses and big sheds, basements, attics, a single garage, a double garage. I've then also gone to warehouses and factories that are the size of a football stadium.
Right. So
again, the scalability of it, you can go from little to nothing. And again, it all just depends. The big thing is power, like you've experienced with your install of your auto from MHM DirectGB.
Right.
3-phase, single phase, standard domestic. If I wanted to go along and set up a standard DTG shop, I could go along and do it with a single DTG, a heat press, and then, depending on my budget, the size of pre-treater I wanted.
Right. Okay.
Whereas obviously then you could also go to the industrial scale where you're spending big money on a large car-size machine that's basically got it all in one. But then because of that process, you then have to have a conveyor dryer, which then is a bigger budget, bigger power supply, takes up more space. So the smallest footprint I've managed to set up a shop in, and it was all heat presses, which again has its pros and its cons, was 1.5 meters deep by 3.5 meters wide. Now, I know that there's people that have done it in smaller spaces than that. Literally, like, you're stood in the middle and all you can do is rotate on the spot. It is achievable. Is it a good workflow? No. Is it enjoyable to work in? No. But does it work? Yeah. Whereas I've also seen it where there's people that have spaced out equipment so much, like your pedometer on your watch is loving you as you're clocking up your 10,000 steps a day and it's only 10 o'clock of the morning because you have to walk miles in between each piece of kit. Then it just becomes inefficient.
Yeah.
So, do you need a dryer or can you just use a heat press?
You can just use it.
Cure it.
Yes. So
this is what I was trying to get across.
So obviously because of the pre-treat and you're breaking down the process and you're doing it bit by bit, you can pre-treat, cure it with it 180 degrees, 30 to 35 seconds, and curing the ink is exactly the same.
Right. So you don't necessarily need a forced air dryer. These digital tunnel dryers that are aimed at digital, basically just standard dryers.
Using a giant heat press is a big old industrial iron, and the one thing that you get, and again, obviously people that press vinyl and DTF transfers, you're going to get a mark. Obviously, you'll get an impression from the heat press regardless. However, depending on where you've sprayed the pre-treat, you might almost get like a bit of steam burn off from where obviously the pre-treat's been boiled, the steam's been forced out. Yeah, basically, snot mark. From where obviously the excess has been forced out.
Right.
And then that's the downside to heat pressing. Ideally, you would use a draw dryer, a conveyor dryer, whether it's infrared, forced air, because there is nothing coming into physical contact with the shirt. Everything just bakes off. So then you get what obviously, a retail ready finish. Whether it's screen print, DTG, and it's gone down a conveyor, you would not know, having just picked it off the end of the conveyor belt, that that's just been done. You could put a coat hanger in it, put it in a shop, and nobody had realised that 5 minutes before that was literally just a blank shirt.
Yeah,
but that's cool. The whole difference of, again, budget and space. If you can fit a single heat press in, you can churn stuff out quite quickly and easily, but it'd have an effect on the quality. Whereas obviously with your dryer, obviously it's a lot bigger, but then obviously it means you're going to get a higher quality, a nicer straight off the belt kind of finish.
Yeah, that's cool. I like
it. Just before we do go any further, I've got obviously on my bingo card, and it's fucking full.
Yeah, I've said it that many times. Yeah, sounds about right. That and like is my other one. I say that so many times with nerves. So that's literally on a whiteboard at work, Danny. I've got that next to me on a whiteboard at work saying, "Stop saying obviously so much."
I didn't notice.
Because he works with a set of bastards, that's why. I think I wrote it.
Yeah, probably.
So where will DTG be in 5 years?
In a bin.
Ooh.
It's one of those ones of, like you've both said, but mainly Tony, like you said with screen printing inks, at the end of the day, they're just going to get to a point where you guys are just going to be using ink.
Yeah.
If DTG ink, especially the white ink, could have the pre-treat in it, so there is no need for pre-treat and you can just print a shirt, I think obviously then it would continue to grow and it would continue to progress and it would still have a place in the world. Yeah. Do I think it'll still always have a place in the world? Yeah, because again, it all depends on the jobs you're doing and the market you're catering for. But if we could eradicate that Achilles heel that is pre-treat, I mean, somebody's already tried. The whole idea of obviously mixing it in with the ink is obviously the key one. But like Tony says, due to technology, and this is something that I messaged you about not long ago when I learned that ink was the same way of it shivving through the mesh.
Mm.
Right.
Microns of ink are rolled to a specific size to accommodate going through a Prezzo print head, There's no point having a hole that big to fire the ink through if the ink molecule's that big. It's not going to work. Whereas that's the whole point with pre-treat being added into the pre-existing inks. It would make it such a viscosity that a printhead would not be able to fire it. No different than obviously you picking your mesh, your squeegee, your travel, your speed, angle. We just have, here's the...
It must be on my card somewhere.
Yeah.
They're the 5 hills, 6 hills.
Yeah. I've done it 5 hills, 6 if it's on an auto, because I'm presuming travel only applies when it's on an auto. These are the things that you pick
Pressure.
up. But it's one of those ones of, if somebody literally came up with a white DTG ink that had, it either didn't need pre-treat or the pre-treat was in it, so you literally just loaded the shirt, printed it, and that was it, they will be a billionaire overnight. The only other way you could do it is by affecting what you're going on to, which obviously somebody else has tried. So obviously you've got brands out there. There's only one that I can think of off the top of my head called RTP Apparel. So ready to print apparel. Ready to print. Yeah. And it's basically a garment that has been, as far as I'm aware, it's been stinted and made and fully washed in pre-treat. So no matter where you want to print on the garment, there's pre-treat on it. I think like a little heat press to just activate the pre-treat, and then away you go. But then again, having it soaked in that chemical is going to have varying effects on longevity, quality, consistency,
price.
You're
paying for pre-treat on the back, and you only print it in the front.
Yeah, so you're paying for a fully printed garment, a fully pre-treated garment, even though you might only be doing an A4 on the front. The only novelty you've got of that is you don't need your own pre-treat machine yourself, and you haven't got to do it yourself. Right. It turns up, you take it out of a sealed bag, the chemical reaction starts, cheeky little heat press just to zhuzh it up and flatten the surface, and away you go. Is that the solution? From what I've experienced, I don't think so.
The only test I did of that was brightness. So the freshly pre-treated shirts, where the pre-treat's less than 30 minutes old, is brighter than a pre-treated shirt that's a couple of days or a couple of weeks old. So it loses about 20% of its opacity, its brightness. I don't know why. I don't know what the chemical was, but yeah, it lost a lot of its oomph. Do you know the history of DTG then? You know how it came about?
No, but you can educate me. That's why I listen to these podcasts.
I do believe it was a guy called Scott Fresner in America in the 80s who basically took apart a desktop printer and sort of like played with the white, played with everything, dropped the bed down, tried to get it to stick. And the only way that he could make it work on a dark shirt was to take a Wagner sprayer or a spray gun and spray it with this chemical, this crosslinker, crosslinker is in neutral base. So crosslinker comes from this industry, from the water-based ink systems, and then print on top. So we're basically, in my opinion, we've come up with an idea, and then we've backwards engineered everything to make it work. So the idea was take a digital printer and print onto a shirt. Yeah, but it won't work unless you do this. So then we have to invent a way to do that. If it won't work if we don't have a white, okay, we'll invent a white. If it won't work if we don't pre-treat it, okay, so it won't work if it's polyester. So we're always going backwards. And like you say, it only takes one innovation, like DTF was an innovation, even though it's been around for such a long time. The innovation of, well, why don't we just print the pre-treat? We've got a printhead that it'll pass through now. So the original reason I got told we can't print the pre-treat is the acidity of the chemical that is the pre-treat destroys the printhead.
Yeah, it's a salt compound, isn't it? So
then when I asked why don't we put
water don't get on. So
when I asked why don't we put the ink and the pre-treat together, what happens when the wet ink touches the pre-treat? It solidifies. It goes more solid. Otherwise, it would sink through the garment.
The chemical reaction happens, but it would happen in the printhead.
It would happen in the printhead, so it would solidify in the printhead, which means it won't pass through the tiny little nozzles anymore. So it was always that double-edged sword of, yes, we've got a solution. We add this crosslinker, and that makes it work. Okay, but we can't make the crosslinker and the ink touch until it's at the very end. Even the hybrid machines that are around now, where we screen print the white and we screen print the crosslinker, it's exactly the same sort of thing. We keep them separate. We can't make them mix together. In the same way we have to flash. We can't have the wet white ink and the wet yellow ink touching each other because they'll just get a lemon colour. So it's a matter of keeping everything separate, but we're always working backwards to find a solution. And I'm like you, I can't wait for someone to just come out and go, well, we can just print it now. Just print the pre-treat and that's it, it's done. Print the pre-treat and make the pre-treat so that it goes on cotton and polyester. Boom. Because they're the only two things, really, that are holding DTG. It's been, I would say, 10 years that I've known about it. It's not... I bought an Anajet about 15 years ago. It's not progressing because of these hurdles. Number one, we have to give it a separate system, a separate procedure, the pre-treat. And number two, it doesn't go on everything. We're not used to separating polyester and cotton, other than, well, I've got a white ink, it goes on polyester, and I've got a white ink that goes on cotton. But, it's very easy to change them out. How easy is it to change a pre-treat machine now? I presume you have to wash the whole thing out. You can't just do one cotton and one poly.
Yes, you can. So modern pre-treaters now run off of a multi-tank system, and they have switches. You do still need to purge the whole thing, but it is literally the push of a touch screen. Turn a tap going, I want to go from normal pre-treat to light pre-treat, or cotton pre-treat to poly pre-treat, and then it'll reload it. So
how good is poly pre-treat?
It's just too long. It's not that the final product isn't amazing, but poly printing now, I'd probably say, is 5 times longer than cotton printing. So if I'm doing anything from 30... Yeah, well, it's not even that, it's layers. Again, because polyester, it's not absorbent, is it? It's a plastic fibre. So whereas, obviously, if you've got your, let's say, a load of straws of sponge, if you put the ink on, the sponge is going to soak it up and the sponge will turn that colour. Whereas if you've got a load of straws, it's not going to absorb, it's just going to coat. So what you need to do is, like Tony says with like chemical reactions, you need to put a fine layer down to coat, let it dry, so then when you put another layer down, it doesn't bleed, it sticks to that one, and then that dries, and then that dries, and then that dries, and then obviously it builds up. But that's the reason why the process now takes 5 times as long, because you have to do 10 times as many passes, whereas onto absorbent cotton, it's just one pass, it soaks in, it solidifies, job done.
Do you run into the same dye migration problems as we do?
Yes. So if you don't apply the right level of pre-treat or the right thickness of base, obviously red, as you know, both whether it's an ink or whether it's the actual product colour, is the worst process in the world. And just like DTG, you can get a lovely crisp white print on a red shirt. 2 days later, when it's been delivered by whoever you use and the client opens it up, why the hell is my crisp white print baby pink? Going back to DTF, now they have developed quite quickly a carbon powder, a bit like you can get carbon blockers for screen. So you can apply this black carbon powder, which again acts as a migration blocker, going Mr. Dye colour, you stay down there, Mr. Ink, you stay down there, keeps them separate. And again, if you're doing it manually, chopping and changing between normal powder and carbon powder is quite easy. If you're doing it manually and you were doing it by the sheet, you literally just go, well, this one I want to dip into this powder tray or that powder tray. Whereas like you saying about swapping over pre-treats, if you were doing that in a big DTF machine and you've got a whole, shaker, powder dropper and beater, you've got to clean that whole thing out of whichever powder you're currently using to then swap it out for whichever one you then want to use, which then again is downtime. Downtime is lost time. So, but again, and again, that's only been 3 years, and they developed carbon powder very quickly as they saw a problem and they went, well, how about we just get the kind of carbon blockers that screen printers have and just freeze dry it and powderize it? Whereas with DTG, again, because of the viscosity of like a carbon blocker would be, like the pre-treat, there'd be no way you could fire that through a printhead or then mix it in with additional inks, because obviously then everything would just fight.
So is the solution screen print digital combination?
Hybrid.
I like it.
Is that the solution?
But again, horses for courses. If you wanted a lot of a single thing, you would do 1 or 2 base screens, white flash white, digital print on top, cracking, loads of the same thing. But if you want lots of singles, are you going to want to be constantly swapping out that one white screen every print?
Yeah. Sort of defeats the
Have you
purpose
seen
of
the Aoun
DTG
machine?
in a way.
Yes.
Did you see the Aoun machine that has a screen inside it?
Yeah.
It's a DTG machine, but it's
At
got
the
a screen
front,
and a squeegee
and then it's
inside
got
it.
like a J-Lo arse at the back, and in that cavity is where there's the screen. Yeah,
And it
very
flashes
impressive.
it. So basically,
yeah.
because it is a printer, they have a print head that has black, solid, light blocking ink in it. So you put your emulsion screen in there. So you put your newly emulsion screen into the DTG printer. It prints black of the image when it's held into like 4 pins. Then you go develop your screen, bring it back, clip it back in. It's in the same place. And then you DTG over the top of that when you print it. You can print it with plastisol or water-based or silicon, and there's a little flash unit in the back. So the palette moves under the screen bit. It gets printed, moves back to be flashed, comes back out, comes back to the front where it gets DTG.
So we've got a blending of two worlds there. We've got screen print and DTG, but I've also seen a blending of embroidery and DTG. I saw this at Vespa actually, and I was really
Shall I do a show and tell?
Oh, fantastic! What a guy! Where's my bingo, Dabbit? It wasn't me.
I'm out.
This is only because I've already got it in my bag when I do my travels. So let's start with this one. So
show and tell.
Obviously, I don't know if you can. I don't know if that will actually show up with that, but the white embroidery thread. If you can see what it is,
I can see that.
It's a frog on a leaf, and it's all been nicely and tightly. I mean, don't get me wrong, I have no idea what the stitch count on that is, but it's not going to be small.
It looks like a very impressive embroidery.
And then...
Oh, that's magic. That's beautiful.
So obviously this is what I stole from Vespa in Amsterdam.
Yeah.
But obviously that is fully gradiented, full colour, CMYK print, literally like millimetre accurate up to the edge.
That's the thing that you like the most.
So it's a camera-based system. So the 3 most up-to-date brother printers, obviously, whether other brands come out with their own equivalent, they might do.
Nobody cares.
It's a mount that goes on the pre-existing stands of the printer. It overlooks the print platen. Looking at the garment, obviously this has just been done on like stock material. I know, is it begins with P? You've talked about it before.
Helen.
That.
That's
but yeah, load it up, and this is again, it all comes about the preparation. So you've then got to take a photo with this high quality camera. It'll then basically take a still. You then load that into Photoshop. You then drop your artwork over the top. Depending on how good and how neat and how accurate and tight the embroidery is, depends on how much you've got to morph, liquefy and shift, alter, resize the artwork. Once it is perfect there, so obviously the quality of that comes down to the person that's doing it. But once you've locked it in once, you never have to alter it again. So then you go back to the camera system. It will then show you the embroidery and the print file. It will then merge the two. It will print one perfectly on top of the other. But then every time you then do a new one of that design, the easiest way to describe it, it's obviously going to use a little bit of like AI, but you know, like fingerprint or thumb recognition on your phone or facial recognition on your phone. You then you load the next shirt, you press a button, the system then scans what the camera can see, looks at the shape that's generated, knows exactly what design it is based on the design you've already given it in its catalogue. So it'll go, that's a picture of a frog on a leaf. I've got one of those. It will then load in that design. Even if you've loaded the T-shirt on the piss, it will then automatically orientate the artwork and perfectly match it in its new orientation.
That's quite mind-blowing.
Is it going to be the be-all and end-all and everyone's going to have one and this, that, the other? No. The novelty.
How sad that technology is just going to.
It is fascinating and it is awesome. So again, here's another one. I don't know if the light's helping or not, but that's
just
meant to be
a camera that'd help rather than off screen. No, so that's a
you see this? Yeah,
of course can, yeah.
And then, so that.
Wow, that almost looks
real.
real.
I can see it now.
It looks furry.
So, but obviously the only bit of that that's actually embroidered is the bee. So again, it's not even like you've got to be accurate to whatever the embroidery is. You can overprint.
That's stunning. That's such an impressive bit of technology. We need to see a bit more of that.
You go along and whack that on a high quality ASColour, Stanley Stella, fashion based base.
Clicking a wing.
You could sell that whether it was to a fashion brand or whether you were selling it yourself. Obviously, you can sell it because it is a very niche, a very specialist, a very unique thing. Are you going to have somebody like a high street brand turn up and go, "Can I have 20,000 of those?"
See,
Slowest part of the process is still going to be embroidery. DTG, CMYK only, onto white thread. We're probably maxing out at 40 seconds, probably 30 to 40 seconds as a print time. But something like that, again, I'm only just learning about embroidery. That could take 5 minutes or that could take 50 minutes. You know, I know, like, Tony, you might know, like a standard brass badge logo, what we're talking, like 15 to 20 minutes?
7 minutes. 7.5 minutes. Think about 1,000 stitches a minute, roughly. So if you think a left chest would always be around about 7,000 stitches, we would look to get one off every 8 minutes or so, which is not one, it's a run of 8.
However many's on the machine.
Usually an 8 head will get you, a run like that every 7 or 8 minutes.
I'll tell you what,
which is every 8 minutes you get 8, so you could say it's 1 a minute, but it's not. It's close to.
And then obviously it'd match if you had one DTG and an 8 head. Then obviously in theory it's minute for minute. So every 2 minutes you're embroidering, printing. Because obviously by the time you finish those 8, your next batch of 8 have been done.
Yeah.
So, but that's not real. Personally, it's not what I see it being used for. Unless you had multiple DTGs with that kind of system on, I see it as more like one-offs, small batch runs, high quality, high price mark. It wouldn't be something you'd want to rush. Like I said, if I was literally given 15 minutes to play with the entire software, I did one myself. So onto a black garment, same rules apply, but obviously you can see my reg, because I did it quickly and wasn't paying attention, my reg is out.
Yeah. Well, you could just pass that off as an highlight. Nobody knows about it.
Yeah.
But obviously,
like
if I spent an additional 5, 10, 15 minutes just nailing that, then obviously the benefit is I haven't got to do it again. Once it's saved, I've not got to touch it.
Yeah. The first thing that sprung to mind when I saw that was the £500 T-shirt we looked at last episode, which hasn't come out yet, Luke. So I'm sorry, but you won't have seen this yet. But that £500 T-shirt, and I just think if you're aiming to be a high-end brand, an independent brand, you may be an individual setting up a brand. And if you had that technology, sky's the limit what you could charge. You could really produce a stunning brand with some really unique pieces of garments, T-shirts.
Sometimes those pieces get you in through the door, and once you're in through the door, then you start to get the brand, the work that earns you money.
Yeah,
like embossing. We used to do embossing for the similar reason.
Yeah.
It wasn't to make money on embossing; it was just to get you through the door.
Yeah.
Say, look, we can do this. Oh, that's great. Can I have 100 one-colour shirts, please? What about all this that I can do? Yes, great. I'd love it. Great. And that's the reason you've got the 100 one-colour shirts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sometimes, brands will just... You almost have to make those wow pieces to, like you just said, sell the brand, and then chance of people being able to afford it. But they will buy the more bread and butter pieces that maybe one or two colours are slightly less impressive. So, yeah, I honestly could see that. Somebody's going to come along and use that technology and charge some ridiculous prices, and people will lap it up, apparently. We've seen the £500 T-shirt, so it obviously works. So can I ask one more question? Unless you've got any more questions, Tony?
Go for it.
One last question. Can we satisfy the hippies? Is DTG a eco-friendly process, or is it much like screen printing where you can choose to be eco-friendly? You can have eco-friendly inks or use eco-friendly processes. Will we be killing any dolphins in the process?
Hang on, that is on there.
Turtles and dolphins.
I'm not doing too bad. I'm only one off, but I don't think the thing that I need to get my row is gonna crop up anytime soon. It can be. Again, it is one of those ones
Could be
it's water based. just like your water-based. And as you know, water-based is water-based, but there is still that level of, I mean...
nasty shit.
Yeah. It's as much as it's water-based, it is still an ink. Obviously, even when DTG ink dries, even when water-based ink dries, it goes that rubbery, there is a plastic content to it.
Right.
If you just go water-based is lovely, then it's perfect, because pre-treat, water-based. All the ink, water. Dribble from me dabber. Pre-treat, water-based. Ink, water-based. Obviously, if you put it through the right curing process, again, you can make it as eco-friendly as you want. It might have to go down a dryer, but obviously energy consumption depends on the dryer. Everything's being baked off. The way that it can be disposed of, again, the official rules are to dispose of all digital waste according to the rules of your local authority.
Not really.
If you can be bothered to pull your finger from your arse and find a decent waste management company that is willing to take away a sample, test it to see how it can be disposed of, and then they will... Everybody thinks to do it the right way is mega expensive. So when I ran the print shop 8 to 9 years ago, I had 3 GT3s, old model. Ink was twice as expensive. Prints took twice as long. But at the time, it was great technology. Maintenance heavy, which is where a lot of the technology is advanced to now. So it's very much maintenance light. But I was churning out good numbers on a daily basis. Ink waste was minimal. It's the one good thing about certain DTG brands. As long as it's worked out properly, your waste is minimal. I found a local company that went along and took a sample of both the pre-treat waste and the ink waste. They ran it through, is it a centrifuge, where it spins it and separates it? It powderised it, and they worked out that 85% of that product could be recycled or reused.
Oh,
So
wow.
I then got delivered a 200-litre metal drum, and with 3 DTGs, it took me 2.5 years to fill it. And to dispose of it and get it recycled, that 85%, 120 quid. Now, that was obviously just shy of a decade ago. Whether those prices have obviously changed since then, but it's 120 quid in 2.5 years to go along and say, I've tried to be as eco-conscious as possible in the disposal of. I think that's a drop in the ocean where the turtles and dolphins are.
If you distribute that per T-shirt that you sell over a year,
it's minimal.
Half a penny, if that. Yeah, smashing.
Well, the flip side to that story is I know a guy with 2 machines, and after a year, the 200 litres that he threw away cost him 70 grand.
What?
In ink. So 200 litres of ink from another manufacturer. I see what
you're saying here.
And the cost of getting rid of it, total cost 200,000 in wasted ink every year, which you have to add on to your bottom line.
Sounds like
it wasn't a brother.
So, again, do your homework, get the right kit.
It sounds, to be honest, quite comparable to screen printing. We can obviously
it's the classic.
It's the tick the boxes.
It's the classic thing of if you do your homework, the information is out there. However, if you go to the actual I think it's a conversation you've had before of who would you trust the opinion of? The person selling the machine. So obviously I'm out because I'm automatically going to have bias. But then obviously to the person that's had one and uses it. Because obviously at the end of the day, they're the ones that have dealt with it. They've used it firsthand. They've had to go through the pitfalls and peaks of obviously the pros and cons. Is it worth it? Is it not? I like calling it the marketing bullshittery of it all. It's not really a lie, but they've not really told you the whole truth either.
Yeah.
We call it potterism.
Oh, you can do if you want to, if that's the route you want to go down.
And I thought I would have no work on this episode.
But it is one of those ones of certain printers where they'll go, oh, it can do this many in an hour. And it's like a case of, okay, that's cool, amazing. And you buy it and then you try it and you go, oh, I've never hit that figure in 1,000 years. And like, oh, did I not tell you it was 1,000 an hour? Like that big. It's like, oh, you've not lied, but you haven't told me the full truth either. So that's all. That's the one thing.
Lying by omission.
Yeah. So it's like that's the reason why I love going to the trade shows, whether obviously we're doing them or whether I attend them, because it's a case of proofs in the pudding. I'm physically here. Show me. Do it. Show me that thing. And that's what I say to customers that have reached out to us before trade shows going, I'm interested, but I'd kind of like, and it's like, come for a demo. If you don't want to do a demo, come to a big open event, bring a design on a USB stick. We'll churn it out there and then. You want to go along and see how quick I can churn out one single print? Oh yeah, but if I needed to do 1,000 of them, it's not very quick. It's like, but then the benefit is, well, if that's what you want, screen printing equipment's over there. Oh yeah, but I can't really afford that kind of equipment and it's massive. Oh, well, if you want to go kind of the middle route, you've got DTF. All that's over there.
Yeah,
Unless you go to the yearly Rallowise and DTF show that's at the NEC. Oh, he's gone. He's had enough. I've pushed him over the edge.
Well, I think on that note, it's probably ready to give up Ghost.
I think technology's been against us. I've had to drive to a McDonald's. You've knocked your camera over, and we know you're not sitting properly. You're only squatting. Stop trying to make it look like you're sitting down.
It's because he can't be asked to do leg day, so he's just putting that in instead.
It does look like a squashy, though, doesn't it? That pink and white bit.
Me?
He's definitely rocking the squashy look today.
Oh, I'm a bit sunburnt.
That's exactly what you look like. You look like a squashy.
You know, I've never had one of these before. I'm going to have one.
They look like the rhubarb ones as well.
Yeah, and then you've got the sours. You've got the sours to look forward to. I don't know if you're a sour person or not, but that's what you've got.
I'm sure they won't be there by the time I get back. Alice has already opened them. I have got a picture of what you sent me, so yeah, I do appreciate the care package.
No worries.
I don't think I can.
Yeah, what a lovely touch. Really appreciated. I think we can sum this episode up.
I highly doubt that's going to get worn. I'm sure, obviously.
Hang on.
One dad's little screen goblin.
Sure, yeah. A present for Annie.
Is she okay? Is she okay? Is she okay, Annie?
Are you okay, Annie?
Oh, it's literally fucking weeks I've been waiting for that. Look at the kettle about to boil over.
I've used that line, surely.
No.
I must have done.
No. Hang on, let me have a look at the minutes.
That has been on my notes, and you've just stole that. You've stole my thunder there.
No worries.
Dear. Well, I've had a bloody lovely time. I think we can sum this episode up, and we can sum DTG up, which is what I was hoping. This is what I was hoping the outcome would be. Horses for courses. It's got a place. Tony might disagree, but I'm going with horses for courses. So yeah, thanks so much.
It could be better, but that's technology in a nutshell.
What couldn't be? Most things could be, couldn't we? We can always improve. Right, it's officially time. I need a piss. I need a wee, should I say? Tony's starving. Luke, I'm pretty sure you'll be a bit peckish as well. So, thanks so much.
All we've got to do is say Siddy, and I think he's got a line then.
Yeah, hang on.
There you go.
House.
Oh, get me. You're welcome on any time, Luke.
I just had a look at my card and I saw, he's waiting for Sidney. Right, we'll have to make those available. I think we should do some T-shirts with it on.
Well, I'm gonna now that he's led the way, I'm gonna reproduce these and sell them for £20 a pop. So
they'll be available on my website.
Yeah, on Danny's OnlyFans.
Oh, it's coming.
It's on its way. Be careful what you wish for.
If these caps don't flog, it's coming. Right, Luke. Thanks, me old mucker.
No worries.
Tony, go get some tea. I'm off for a week.
Yeah. Always. See you later.
Oh,
all that has to be said is, I'll see them.
I'll see them.
Give me posh, no, she don't agree with me.